The next big program that I wanted to talk to you about today is Utopia Homes. Utopia Homes is a fairly new company, as far as I know. And I became aware of them in about 1 year ago, when they started to claim that they're America's #1 rent to own exchange market. I never understood what that means. But nevertheless, I did had one experience with Utopia Homes. It was not a positive experience. Um, Let me switch to their website so I can show you what their website looks like. Okay, hopefully you can see it. If you go to home buyers, they make all kind of really enticing promises like, oh no, look at us being featured on Fox and US Venture and Bazinga or whatever it is. For home buyers, how it works. Oh, you get approved. You find your utopia, and you don't know what your utopia is. In fact, it took me a really long time to understand what it actually means, find your utopia. We're going to talk about that wild experience. And then moving on, suddenly you're earning money too. I mean, sounds like a dream of dreams for many potential home buyers. So I have this situation. I'm just going to tell you straight up of what happens and you judge for yourself. So I have this situation, a lady, she's a traveling nurse. She makes really good income. Like her income is through the roof as a traveling nurse, but because she's constantly changing for, contracts, it's not that hard to get approved for a traditional loan, blah, blah, blah. We land on Utopia. Utopia approves her for a house up to $800,000 with her income and say, now go find your utopia, without really telling us, like, what do we actually need to find? So we do what we thought was their promise. So their promise, the base of their promise is you go and you find a home and we will buy it on your behalf. That was their spiel. And we're going to turn it into a rent to own. Sounds great. I always had my suspicions in the back of my mind about this whole proposal, because when I go for Utopia Homes, I see that they are a property management company, not a property buying company. So from the very beginning, I was very confused. Why would they be property management, not buying company? So that lady and I, we set out, we go see multiple homes. She brings her kids. She's so excited. We find a home that she just absolutely loves in Sunnyvale, Texas. And we send this home to Utopia and they say, okay, got it. You will be home in your home in no time. We're crunching numbers. Wait for our next email, and then crickets for a week, like about a week worth of crickets. Now, there's one thing that you need to know about Utopia, and then there is no way to talk to a live person, like zero. You have to go through this little chat box right here. And this little chat box gives you generates an email, and you can talk to some anonymous support person located God knows where. You don't even know what position they have. Their manager, or their supervisor, or they're just somebody in India, managing chatbot. No idea. Let's just say some guy called David. David says, "Oh, we're still working on your request. Please wait." You wait for a few more days. "Oh, we're still waiting on your request. We're escalating it." No response after that. So finally, we're starting to understand. And they say, by the way, if this person, the owner of the house, would like to rent to own it to you, you just let us know. And they repeated it to several times, to a point where I was like, wait a second. What is actually going on in here? Why you're not saying anything about the purchase of the home, but you keep saying, hey, go talk to the homeowner. Maybe they will be interested in renting, owning the home. So I finally requested a phone conversation with somebody. And basically they told me that, we actually don't have a way to approve a house like that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a way to approve a house like that? They said, well, maybe as an exception, let us review your case. But in reality, the best way to go about it is for you to connect to this homeowner and discuss setting up a rent to own opportunity that we will manage. And I said, if I can connect with a homeowner and set up a rent to own, negotiate a rent to own contract with them, why in the world would I need you, Utopia Homes? Obviously, I would be more capable than you are at this business at that point. However, we went back and forth, and I said, your website specifically said that you're going to buy a property of this, you'll buy a home on our behalf and allow us to move in. So why aren't you living up to your promises? They said, yes, in general it is possible, but $800,000 is a very high price range and we cannot get an exception. I'm like, okay, so we need to look at homes in a lower price range. Is that what you're saying? And they didn't say yes to no. They said just at $800,000, it's a very hard to get that exception. And I told my client, the home buyer, and I said, well, why can't we look at homes that are like 500, 450, find a home that you like, and at the very least start there. So we go for a second round of home shopping. We go through several homes, and we do find a couple of homes that she likes. So the home that she likes is like $470,000. So we send the home to Utopia, and crickets again. Several days of crickets. I tried to ping David, whoever the David was. I tried to ping every single person who ever responded to one of our technical crickets. After several days of waiting, finally get an update from, again, they're saying David from Utopia or Lydia from Utopia. So David responds, it says, we're still working on it. We appreciate your patience. We're looking at our options. But if you, in the meantime, while we're waiting, if you could negotiate a rent to own opportunity with the homeowner, that would really help everybody out. So after several days of waiting, they said we're trying to connect with the financing team to see if they can arrange a purchase of the home. But in the meantime, if you could connect with the homeowner and see if they would be willing to do a rent to own, that would really be the optimal scenario. So I asked this David, or whatever his name is, or her name is, say, hey, tell us right now, can you or can you not purchase homes? Because on your website, you said you go, you start shopping. You find a home and we will arrange everything for you. But in reality, basically, what they're doing is they're sending you to shop for homes. So this is how I understood their beautiful process. They send you to shop for homes. They make it to fall in love with the home, and then they start to stretch it, kind of like drag it out, was giving you neither yes nor no on whether they can buy a house. In the meantime, constantly encouraging you to talk to the homeowner to see if they can arrange a rent to own agreement. So finally, I pinned David down and I said, David, is there any possibility of us purchasing this home? Or are we the one who are doing all the legwork, all the convincing, and we need to go and find a landlord who will do rent to own? But that means that 99% of all homes in our area will not qualify. And David basically agreed, said, yeah, in some unique cases, we can actually purchase a house, but in most cases, you need to go and you need to hunt for sellers who would agree to do a rent to own. And then we manage the property. So I asked David, if we can find a home that is willing to do rent to own for us, why do we need to pay you? Why can't we pay directly to the homeowner? What role are you going to play in this transaction? Why did you make us jump through all of these approval hoops? Means weeks of submitting documents, you reviewing stuff, all of this. Because all you're doing is you're doing maintenance in a house. Why do we need to submit all of our financials to you, David? And he didn't really have a good answer. So my impression of this home was they promise a lot, they deliver none. At least from my short experience with them. Also, when you go to search for their homes, it looks like they're more focused on Houston and San Antonio markets. At least in Houston and San Antonio market, they seem to have some homes that they apparently own. Like you can see that you can own this 4-bedroom, 1 bath for $1,000 in San Antonio. Boy, I might need to move to San Antonio. Prices seem to be cheaper. But anyhow, so you see San Antonio, expected rent $3,000 a month, almost 3,000, 2,000. I'm just looking at San Antonio, 3,500. Then we have Houston now. We're seeing Houston, San Antonio, San Antonio, San Antonio. So I think they're like 80% San Antonio, 20% Houston, or 30, maybe mostly San Antonio, a couple of Houstons. But none of the homes, there's a total of 22 homes that this company owns themselves across Texas that are mostly in San Antonio and in Houston. Now, 22 homes across the entire Texas, or at least 3 markets, is not a lot of homes. And I suspect that they started a little bit like Divi, purchasing homes, and then they quickly realized that, or maybe they quickly ran out of money. And after that, they switched to whatever you call what they're doing right now. They're basically, so this is their model, the way that I observe it. They create all of this wonderful glitter, shiny object of their marketing. It attracts a ton of applicants from which they collect a ton of financial data, bank statements, income. I'm a little worried about what they do with that data, since they're obviously not doing it to qualify for anything. But anyhow, they attract these applicants. They qualify the applicants to a certain, like, for example, you can buy a home for up to 500,000, 700,000, whatever. And when the applicant starts to search, they basically tell them, great, go look for homes and find out which one of those homeowners would be open to doing rent to own. So basically, it is like my model, where I go to the MLS and I hunt for sellers who are interested in selling their home, who failed to sell their home. And therefore, rent to own option might be their only option of getting rid of the house. So they're expecting the agent to hunt for tired landlords, hunt for tired home sellers, figure out how to pitch the idea of rent to own to them. And they say, and we have a beautiful rent to own program. We will manage everything for you for some unknown amount of money. And then sell. So me, the agent who works for a buyer, having to sell the Utopia Homes to the home seller, saying, why don't you work with them? They're great. Maybe they're great, maybe they're not. So the agent is doing all the work, but to the best of my understanding, there is almost no pay for this. As far as as far as me, the agent goes. Long story short, I have no idea what their business case is. I do not understand how they perceive they add value to this whole situation, either to the renter. Like, they don't add any value to the renter, obviously, because all they probably do is to add to the expense and the cost of getting, having the program means adding to the rent amount. I doubt strongly that they add any value to the actual owner. Most owners can probably manage a rent to own themselves. And they're not really adding any value to any other part of the transaction. So I do not know what their pitch is to the homeowner, but my recommendation is, if you're looking for a rent-own program and you're going to go through the process of searching for tired landlords and tired sellers yourself anyway, then don't mess with Utopia, because they're not adding anything to you as a renter. And just use a very experienced agent who has done many rent-to-own transactions in the past with more serious programs. When I say serious, means more experienced, more steady programs like Divi Homes. Divi Homes is an excellent program. They just don't have a lot of homes. So find find agents who used to work with companies like DD Homes and Home Partners of America. Find those agents, add them to guide you through search for the rent to own and pitching rent to own as a solution to tired landlords and tired sellers, and then do it that way. So I just wanted, because I get some questions about Utopia Homes, I wanted to make this video, and now I did. So here you are. If you have any questions about Utopia Homes or DV Homes, I have a whole video on DV Homes. I'm going to post a link to it in the description. If you have any questions about DV Homes, Utopia Homes, searching for homes in MLS, I'm Elena Garrett. My name is Elena Garrett, and I'm a realtor in the North Texas area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. I specialize in rent to own. I've done about 6 years of working with DV Homes and Home Partners of America to place many tenants into rent to own programs successfully. So I do understand the paperwork, the legwork, the financial, the legal, the practical implications of the process. Feel free to contact me. My contact information will be in the description below. In the meantime, I'm going to talk in the next video. I'm going to do a video on alternatives to rent-to-own programs. So stick around and I will see you at the next video.